Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for staying back for the last talk. So, in this presentation, I'll be talking about a satellite image analytics tool, which is aimed at extracting agricultural land or identifying agricultural land from satellite images and monitor the change across years. First of all, why do we need such a tool? In recent years, we have found cases where agricultural land has been used up for non-agricultural purposes. For example, this particular news report is talking about in a southern state, southern Indian state, how the state government is actually taking up agricultural land for industrial use. Here's another instance where in central part of India, farmers are protesting against forcible acquisition of their land for an expansion of a railway project. And so development, industrial or like urban expansion is not the only culprit. Environmental causes are also resulting into degradation or reduction in agricultural land. This journal article has a projection across the world that how much agricultural land is going to get reduced in the coming years due to changing climatic conditions. And here's another report which is talking about how Sahara Desert is expanding at an alarming rate towards in a southern direction. So this is an important problem, it's a huge problem and needs to be addressed. Because it can have very drastic consequences. Specifically, it can lead to food shortage problems because reduction in agricultural land means reduction in food production, leading to a food shortage problem. It can lead into increase in unemployment rate because, like for India, 72% of its labor force is indirectly or directly dependent upon agriculture, and this is similar to many other developing countries. And similarly, it can have a drastic effect on economy. Again, presenting some stats from India that like agriculture contributes to almost 17% of the country's GDP. So there are existing methods which are practiced to get an estimate of agricultural land in a region, but they are mostly manual, where some field agents go to the field and get some data, and using those as random samples try to extrapolate the amount of agricultural land in a region. If this process is inaccurate, it is slow, it cannot be repeated very frequently, and sometimes the data you have is outdated. It has not been updated for a long time. So what we are proposing over here is satellite images can give you a very clear picture of the situation in a region. And we are using the Google Earth system, which is a repository of the latest satellite images across the world, along with an archive of historical images from the same region. And to demonstrate the potential of using Google Earth satellite images is look at this satellite image from Angola taken in 2003 and see how it has changed drastically in the next 8 years. To give you another example, this photo has been taken from slightly outside Johannesburg in South Africa. This green piece of land, we see some changes in 2 years. In another 6 years, the entire green stretch is gone. Here's another example from Zambia, very similar. So the goals of this project is to collect satellite images from Google Earth repository and classify the satellite images into 4 broad, very coarse categories, such as agricultural, developed, which includes urban and industrial land, tree-covered regions, and water bodies, and create an year-wise map of agricultural land in a region, and see how that has changed over the years. And in the process, try to identify if we see some reduction or some changes in the agricultural land, what was the transition like? Was it like the agricultural land changed from agriculture to industrial or agriculture to barren, etc. So the way we collected the data was we identified some regions in Africa and in India to train the model. We collected the image at a uniform elevation of 11 kilometers, and each satellite image was bounded by the latitude, longitude coordinates of that region. And here's an example image, like a typical image we had, and you see that one block of image can have different types of land patterns, land type we are trying to identify. So what we did, we segmented these images into what we call superpixels, but each superpixel is will have only one land type. Either it's agriculture, then the entire superpixel will consist of agricultural land, or otherwise. And we used a prior work to do the segmentation process, which uses an undirected graphical model method, a Markov random field, to identify neighboring pixels, whether they're related to each other or not. And once we identify the superpixels or the segments from the images, we use a crowdsourcing technique to annotate these segments to build a training set to develop the design, the classifier we are planning to build. So once the training is done, we have, so once the tool is ready, once the location is stated, the tool will gather the relevant satellite images from the Google Earth data set and tag for across different years. Then it will use the trained classifier to classify each segment into the different categories across all these years. Finally, once we have the data from different years and the classification done into these categories for all these years, we can use that to build an annual land pattern map for that region, and which is done basically by aggregating all the similar, all the superpixels which falls under the same category, and aggregate them and normalize that to find the percentage share of a particular land type in a region for that year. And once we have that for every year, we can monitor the change across all these years, which can be applied specifically for agricultural land. So we tried many different standard image computer vision feature set, and we found out that the convolutional neural net has the best accuracy for this method, for this problem. So we stuck with convolutional neural net and developed the system using that. So once now we have this tool ready, which can be potentially applied to any region in the world, we chose to focus on a particular region and see whether we can find some data about how agricultural land has changed in that region. We chose West Bengal because it's a small state and it's in the eastern part of India, and it lies in the Great Gangetic Plain, and it's very fertile, suitable for agriculture. We focused on the southern part of the states, which has 11 different districts. And this is like some basic information about the state of West Bengal. It's primarily an agrarian state where 67% of the labor force is working in the agricultural sector. And agriculture, again, contributes to almost 19% of the state's GDP. And West Bengal is also among the top 2 producers of many different crops, including rice, potato, tea, and jute. So here are some examples taken from West Bengal where agricultural land has been, these are evidence of how agricultural land has been taken up for non-agricultural uses, particularly for urban expansion or industrial use. Here's another one, and here's a third one, which kind of vindicates the problem we are after. So for this study, we collected images starting from the year 2000 till 2012 at every 2 years. For every year, we had around 7,500 images across the southern part of the state. And each such image were broken into, on an average, 500 different superpixels. And, excuse me, and we classified each of these superpixels and identified and aggregated the superpixels which belong to the category agricultural, and to calculate the yearly percentage share of agricultural land in that state. So in this plot, the blue line shows for every year. So in this plot, the x-axis is the different years for which we did this study, and y-axis represents the percentage share of agricultural land. The blue line represents the results emitted by our tool, and we compared this So we see that like after 2000, there has been a slight increase in agricultural land share. Then there was a drastic drop. We see some increase, but the trend is, at the present trend, is it's uh, getting reduced more. And we compared these results with the official numbers, official statistics are published by the government, which is done by the Bureau of Applied Economics and Statistics of Government of West Bengal. Though we see that it doesn't like match. There is a huge gap between the officially published data and what we have emitted. But we see there's like certain similarities in the trend, that in both the trends, both the numbers are showing that there's a downward trend. On top of that, like when we spoke to the employees who are part of this department and are responsible to get these numbers, they clarified that the official numbers are not reliable. Okay. It's not reliable because there has been like not all, every year, not all areas can be covered. And even if there are, it's the methods used are not very robust. So in a sense that what we give, the data we are giving out can be very useful given the accuracy of the underlying system. So this plot shows the statistics for the entire state, and this is the breakdown for each district in that region where we focused. We see that in most of the districts, the percentage of agricultural land has been reduced, though in some states we see some increase, but that's mostly the states, particularly you see like Bankura and Purulia, they are like in the semi-arid regions on the western part of the state, and it's not very known for agriculture. There we see some increase, but in the rest of the state we see a decrease. And we also tried to find a correlation between what the percentage of agricultural land we found out with some food production index. And we see that in most cases, they correlate. There is a strong positive correlation with statistical significance. And we did that same for each individual district. Again, in the plot, the x-axis is the percentage share of agricultural land in a particular district, and the y-axis is the normalized rice production value officially published. And we see in many cases there is like a strong positive relationship between these two parameters. So this is the current state of this tool. In future, we plan to expand the same idea to detect illegal mining across, particularly in India, and can be applied to any part of the world. Similarly, we are also like working on identifying expansions of cities through this tool and trying to find a model for it. And this can be also used for depletion of water bodies, or like particularly in West Bengal, there is a mangrove forest area which is like very close to the sea, and every year islands are disappearing due to rising seawater level. That can be also be monitored using this. But what we are presenting over here is like based on Google Earth satellite images, which is full of noise. The coverage is not uniform. So with a better data set, we can do a better job. And this workshop has been particularly useful for that. I learned about a lot of data and methods which we can potentially use. And also, in this tool, we are just kind of producing a data set based on what can be already observed. And now one of the future plan is to use this observed data to do some projection that like include other features such as water availability, population of a location, to project whether there is a chance that agricultural land in this region might get reduced in the coming years. And also like find the relationship between observing the sequence from the past, like how agricultural land, when it was changed to some other land type, maybe it's industrial, maybe it's for residence purpose. Can we find a model from sequences observed in the past to do this projection? Before concluding, I would like to acknowledge the Center for Technology and Economic Development at NYU Abu Dhabi for supporting this project. And with that, I'll end my talk.
We have time for a question.
So this work is very interesting, and I'm wondering, like, have you tried to see or visualize what kind of features or texture can be extracted from the convolutional nets in this work from the Google Earth
okay,
image. Yeah.
So we haven't yet like looked into the internal part of the model. We just
Okay.
use it as like a block to get the classification. But that's something we would like to do and maybe use it for some other purpose. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of convolutional neural nets, did you use like pre-trained models or you trained from the scratch?
Can you sort of repeat your question?
Did you use pre-trained models like Google Net?
No. We didn't we didn't use any pre-trained model. We like trained the model based on our data set only.
Okay.
Okay, one last question.
Just a quick comment. You could probably improve your correlation between rice production and reduction in land by correcting production using yield per acre, yield per hectare data, because it's very noisy because you're getting different yields in different years due to climate weather.
Actually, we wanted to use that, but like that data was very incomplete in the government data. There's something called yield rate, which is published by the government, but it was very noisy. You had a
Okay, thank you very much. Let's thank the speaker again.